forefinger, he eyeballed it closely, like a shopper studying an egg in a market.
Open his mouth.
A yellow uniformed soldier roughly whipped the blood-wet bandage from Sun Cao's head, and another trooper clamped his hands on the hinges of the man's jaw, forcing his mouth open. Sun Cao struggles, trying to pull away.
No! Please! Oh!
Stepping forward, Wei Qiang pinched the man's nostrils shut. As Sun Cao reflexively opened his mouth to gasp for breath, Wei Qiang used his free hand to cram the grenade into it, leaving only the lever safety ring protruding from between his lips. A trooper took the strip of bloody cloth, ran it under Sun Cao's chin, and knotted the ends tightly at the crown of his head. Sheer terror gleamed in his eyes as his hands were bound tightly at the small of his back. Erica made an effort to rise, but Sun Cao shook his head. Kane felt sweat forming at his hairline. Inserting the tip of the fingernail protector into the grenade's ring, Wei Qiang stared unblinkingly at Erica.
Where is the ninth ring, Tui Chan?
She shook her head, her black tresses screening her face.
I don't know.
Wei Qiang swept the Cerberus personnel with his cold eyes.
Do any of you know?
I do.
And where is it?
Let that man go, I'll tell you.
Ah. And you had that day to hope you were a reasonable man, Dr. C. Remove this garbage.
With one swift, short movement, Kang jerked away the grenade's ring, and the lever clattered to the ground. Two soldiers, their slanted eyes suddenly wide with fear, latched onto Sun Cao's arms and dog-trotted him swiftly toward the lip of the ridge overlooking the cove. Stop! Lakish fumbled beneath his shirt. I'll tell you! The troopers pitched Sun Cao headlong over the edge of the ridgeline, and then dropped flat to the ground, burying their faces in their arms. King spun toward his friends. Everyone recoiled. Nausea roiled in Kane's belly. A mushroom of black smoke floated up from beneath the ridge. Lakish whirled on Wei Qiang. You psychotic bastard! There was no need for that.
Really, Dr. Singh? I thought we needed to communicate with each other. First, I administered a lesson. Let no insult go unavenged. I trust I made my point.
Lakish balled his fists, struggling to rein in his anger. Eyes flicking from the gun barrels trained in his direction.
Easy. Where is the ninth ring, Dr. Singh?
Why should I tell you anything?
You will talk or you will die. All of you will die. Which do you prefer?
Musgrave, is your organization working with this homicidal madman or for him? Musgrave's right hand automatically went up to touch the scars on his face.
How is that relevant?
Because the consortium might find it more profitable to make a bargain with Cerberus. For an instant, Musgrave seemed interested in the possibility, but received a sideways glare from Wei Qiang.
Cerberus has cost my organization a great deal of time and resources. There can be no bargain. The Millennial Consortium is not a trifle. Our goals are above the limited perspective of individuals. You need to be taught our solid technocratic values before any kind of agreement reaches the
Gesture to Erica. The troopers looked at her, eyes blinking like rabid animals, and hauled her to her feet, dragging her forward. Gang silently surveyed her as if she were a mildly interesting insect he had found scuttling in his garden. Moving with slow deliberation, he wrested away the golden comb from his thumb, revealing a 3-inch long nail, its edges beveled and curved like the blade of a scimitar, the surface coated heavily with glossy lacquer. Lightly, he dragged the edge across Erica's left cheek, leaving a vertical line shining pinkly against the smooth alabaster of her complexion. She recoiled, but tried to maintain a composed, defiant expression.
Why did you steal my property? Why did you take the rings?
The rings are not your property.
No. And how would you know?
I'll tell you what you want to know, Qiang. Wei Qiang's eyes never left Erica's face.
Yes. Yes, you will.
Wei Qiang slashed with his thumbnail in a swift figure-8 motion. Erica flailed backward, hand clapped over the raw, bleeding mass of her right eye. A grinning trooper caught her up in his arms, embracing her tightly as she twisted and convulsed in shock and agony. Bridget blanched in horror. Kane and Grant remained motionless, their bodies as tense as drawn bowstrings. Reaching under his shirt, Lakish snatched away the hyper ring that had been hanging from his neck by a thin chain. Here! He tossed it to the ground at Wei Qiang's feet. Take it, and let her go. Wei Qiang favored him with a pitying smile. Then he inspected the wet crimson glistening on the razored edge of his thumbnail. The tip of his tongue came out, touched the blood. He turned his head.
Sour, just as I expected.
He took a step toward the struggling Erica, lifting his left hand. Kane prepared himself to leap on the soldier covering him and Grant. Then he caught a brief, almost subliminal blur of movement streaking overhead. A long arrow drove through the neck of the trooper standing on Grant's right. Kane's battle-trained muscles exploded in a perfect coordination of mind, reflexes, and skill. Before the arrow-impaled man had fallen, Kane hurled himself forward, shoulder-rolling between Bridget and Lakesh. He caught a fragmented glimpse of fearful desperation crossing the face of the soldier when the man realized what his captive was doing. He tried to bring his subgun to bear, but Kane rose smoothly to his feet right in front of him, his right hand slapping aside the barrel of the Calico, and his left hand stabbing out with a thumb and forefinger at the larynx. The yellow-helmeted trooper dropped to his knees, a little spurt of blood spilling from his lips. Kane snatched the subgun from his hands, pivoting on the balls of his feet. At the same instant, Bridget fell flat, balancing herself on her right hand. Using it as an axis, she spun into a reverse heel kick and swept the trooper's legs out from under him. As he went down, Grant delivered the steel-reinforced toe of his left boot to the underside of his jaw.
No!
The trooper holding Erica Van Sloan twisted her, then flung her away as he tried to unlimber his subgun. Erica went in the direction of the throw, somersaulting backward against the legs of two soldiers behind her. She knocked one of them off his feet, causing another to trip over him and sprawl face down, dropping his Calico in the process. Lakesh sprang for the fallen subgun, deftly plucking it from the ground by its short barrel and whipping it around to slam the butt against the trooper's jaw. A soldier snatched up his own weapon, centering the sights on the scientist. The point drove between the bands of Kevlar on the tunic and penetrated the man's chest, bursting out between his shoulder blades. He toppled onto his back, clutching at the arrow, blood fountaining from his mouth. Lakesh fumbled with the unfamiliar Calico for a long, panicky second, then directed a staccato burst in the direction of Wei Qiang and Werner Musgrave. The two men scrambled behind the bulwark of the Scorponok, trying to stay ahead of the stream of poorly aimed lead. Dirt fountains erupted at their heels, little slivers of stone pelting their legs. Bridget rolled across the ground, snatched up a pair of copperheads from their bundle of gear in mid-tumble, and bounced to her feet. She fired both weapons at the soldiers who hunkered down within the wheel wells of the FCS, shooting back hastily without aiming. Bridget didn't really aim either. Her objective was to keep the soldiers pinned down and seeking cover. A bullet hissed past Bridget's ear, and another tugged at her long hair. 3 bullets took the trooper's right ear off, bit into his neck, and hammered him between the eyes. One of the troopers Erica had bowled over struggled to his feet, raising his subgun. The man staggered, clutching convulsively at the shaft in his thigh. Kane turned his appropriated Calico on him, stitching his midriff with a zipper of slugs. The trooper went down heavily. Lakesh, seemingly oblivious to the carnage around him, lunged forward and snatched the Hydra's ring from the ground. He examined it closely for damage, blowing dirt from its jeweled eyes. A trio of soldiers regrouped, firing in the direction of Grant, Bridget, and Kane, muzzles flashing with dancing flames. 3 shots from Kane's subgun drilled holes through the lower face of one of them. Bridget framed the trooper next to him in her sights. The burst opened up his throat, propelling him backward in a crimson mist. The man was dead before his body fully settled. On the prow of the Scorponok, the front-mounted, box-fed 50-caliber machine guns suddenly rose on their armatures, swiveling and locking in a position to catch everyone, Outlander and soldier alike, in a triangulated crossfire.
Down! Everybody get down!
He flung himself full length, rolling frantically toward the front of the vehicle. He saw his friends following his example, dropping flat and crawling forward as fast as they could. However, the soldiers evidently believed they were immune from gunfire, and they kept to their feet. A storm of 50-caliber bullets pounded into a pair of troopers. Great gouts of earth exploded all around them. As Grant rolled across the pile of their gear, his hands groped blindly over the combat harnesses until his fingers came in contact with the familiar canister shape of an M33 fragmentation grenade. Taking a deep breath and holding it, he jerked the grenade away from the vest, leaving the safety ring still connected to the spring clip. Lunging to his feet between the pair of machine guns, he reached up with his left arm to grasp the barrel of the cannon. He chinned himself up by one arm, wriggled around, his thumb slipping away the priming lever. He jammed the grenade into the bore, smacking it with the palm of his hand to push it on its way.
Fire in the hole!
For a microsecond, the bore of the cannon was haloed in a red flash. Then flying tongues of flame billowed outward. The Outlanders felt the concussion in their bones. The entire vehicle jumped. The barrel of the cannon bulged out at the juncture where it joined with the turret. Smoke spouted from splits in the alloy. Both machine guns fell silent at the same instant. The topside
Now from this point, you definitely can see the stadium.
Turret hatch swung open, and amid billows of gray-white vapor, a blood-streaked man clawed his way out and stumbled gracelessly onto the chassis of the FCS. He waved his arms to signal his surrender. An arrow impaled him from back to front, and he fell from the Scorponok to the ground.
Where'd you come up with that strategy, genius?
I improvised.
The big man retrieved his Sin Eater, still snugged within its power holster, from their bundle of belongings. 4 yellow-robed, shaven-headed men emerged from thickets and shrubbery. All of them wielded long bows and carried wooden quivers full of arrows. Taimi rose up, his face bruised, blood trickling from a laceration in his scalp.
Flee, you fools!
He pointed an arrow in the direction of the village.
Christmas.
They followed the barbed point and saw at least a score of helmeted men approaching at a run. Behind them rolled the Scorponok. Kane helped Erica Van Sloan to her feet. Although she kept her right eye covered by bloody fingers, she shook loose from his grasp.
I'm only half blind, Kane.
Suit yourself.
You haven't time! Flee! Flee well! Taimi pointed with the arrow again.
Definitely a
indicating
hole
the goal.
there. Pothole.
Bridget cast a worried glance at the approaching soldiers, barely 100 yards distant.
We won't be able to get out of range of their guns in that sampan.
We won't have to. Look.
Turning, Bridget saw the high masts of Captain Sun Fan's junk as he hove into view at the opening to the river.
Go! My brothers and I will give you time to reach the ship. What of you? Our temple was set afire. This is all we have left.
The priests are forbidden by their creed to use axe or club, not arrows. Convenient loophole. Just might save our asses if we're lucky.
The 5 of them ran, sliding and stumbling down the face of the slope. Erica had a difficult time maintaining her footing because of the hand she kept pressed to the right side of her face, but she did not ask for help. She passed the main headless corpse of Sun Kao without a word or a backward glance. They dashed down the short dock to where the sampan was moored and scrambled aboard. Erica sat with her back against the tiny cabin wall amidships. Her clenched teeth gleamed between her full lips as if she were struggling to bottle up a groan or a scream. Lakesh pulled the rope off the piling and Brent yanked the starter toward the outboard motor, just as the first of Wei Qiang's soldiers appeared on the crest of the ridge. A couple of bullets splashed the surface of the water only feet from the boat's stern. The outboard caught on the first try, and the sampan lunged away from the pier, foaming ripples spreading out in a V beside the prow. Kane slammed his appropriated Kalito into full auto and squeezed the trigger. The weapon thumped in his hand as he sprayed the ridgeline. Grant crouched, sinking his head between the wide yoke of his shoulders. Bridget glimpsed a yellow-tunic body rolling down the slope, breaking a few shrubs and dislodging a number of rocks before it sprawled loose-limbed and lifeless in the mud of the cove. When the bolt of the Kalito snapped open on an empty chamber, Kane dropped it and grabbed a copperhead. Most of the soldiers were too worried about catching a bullet to risk exposing themselves to return fire, so when Brent gunned the outboard to its highest RPM, no more bullets came their way. Kane got up and walked to the bow of the sampan, balancing himself against the rocking of the light boat. He stepped over Lakesh, who was attending to Erica.
Is everyone all right? So far, that could change.
We'll treat you as soon as we can. As the craft passed between the bastions of rock into the river, Kane waved toward the crew of the junk assembled at the side. They gesticulated wildly, pointing back toward the cove. Twisting, belly slipping sideways, he saw a Scorponok lurch to the lip of the ridge. Wei Qiang stood atop the turret. The shells splashed into the water of the cove only a few feet to port. Scarcely had the ripples begun to spread when a column of water boiled up in an explosive geyser. The sampan rocked from the concussion. Foaming spray cascaded over the sampan and drenched everyone on the deck.
Can't this thing go any faster?
We can always swim.
He steered the boat clear of the cove and turned it almost immediately to port, so the tumble of weed-choked rocks would provide cover from the cannon. The junk hove to on an intercept course, its exhaust funnels giving off oppressive fumes. Kane glanced back, but couldn't see the Scorponok. He couldn't be sure, but he doubted Wei Qiang would be so angry as to lay down a blind firing pattern in the hope of sinking them. After half a minute, when no more cannon rounds came their way, he realized his assessment had been correct, but he did not feel relief. Wei Qiang knew their destination. The junk came alongside in a rush of foam, and ropes came looping down to make the sampan fast. Sun Fan's face appeared at the rail, pale and drawn, but creased in a sardonic grin.
Look like we still in the same boat together.
The Yangtze was tremendous.
Yeah, you can hit
a
the
vast flow of silk
button
laden
stop
water so
record.
broad that it was
That's
almost
your,
an inland
are you
sea.
taking that over there?
Far, far off to port, Kane saw a few twinkling lights ashore.